Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Weather Center Nazario. At 7:45 this morning in Keaton Beach, Florida, Hurricane Idalia came ashore as a major hurricane, and today we continue to see whispers of what she's left behind for us. Elevated winds, remnant tropical light thunderstorm activity, at least for Central Florida, but I can tell you now, Northern Florida has seen quite an unprecedented event that we haven't seen really at all in that general area. Today, for episode 16, I want to take you through the aftermath of Hurricane Idalia as she continues to ravage the southeast, now making her way through Georgia into the Carolinas before re-emerging over Atlantic waters. And I also want to talk a little about the lessons that we've learned as weather enthusiasts, meteorologists, forecasters, you name it, from day one to today and further on through Idalia's history. Follow me along, guys. Let's have a conversation. Alrighty, let's get started. So, we are sort of returning to our regularly scheduled programming, so we're going to begin with the National Hurricane Center homepage. Even though Idalia is working her way downstream of the majority of Florida, you can see we still have a very active Atlantic region. We have an invest area, AL 94, off the African coastline with a 50%, 60% chance of development over the next 7 days. We have Tropical Depression 11, another area of interest, as well as Franklin, who just refuses to give up fighting the good fight. He is still a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 105 miles per hour in the center of circulation, and Idalia is still a 75 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane as she continues moving at 20 miles an hour to the northeast over southeastern portions of Georgia. This is where we stand currently with Hurricane Idalia as she continues to weaken. Being this far inland, you can see that her area of influence still spans quite a large, considerable area. Most of Georgia was impacted by this storm. The Carolinas almost to their entirety. You're getting a little bit of wraparound moisture into the Tennessee area, and I wouldn't be surprised if Virginia, to its southern periphery, is starting to see some of the tropical moisture from her northernmost extent work its way in there. Here's our projected window of movement. Here on the left-hand side, you can see we still have about 12 to 15 hours to spend with Idalia as she weakens down to a tropical storm, moves her way into the western Atlantic, and then Bermuda becomes a potential impact area as she continues on as an eastward-moving tropical storm. Bermuda, I know you just had a very close shave with Hurricane Franklin. Franklin has been stirring up quite a bit of trouble for you guys. Please stay tuned for information. This track does have a lot of uncertainty to it. You can see that the operational models are starting to come into a greater consensus as to where she's going to go post Southeastern impact. However, there is still a bit of discrepancy in both the GFS and the Canadian ensembles here. There is a conglomerate of mess in this area where you can see that some want to take it off to the north, others still want to try to do that wraparound loop-de-loop towards Florida once again. If I scroll down a little bit further, you can see that the Canadian model also has it kind of sitting and spinning over the western Atlantic. A few more ensemble members want to take it back towards the Bahamas and the state of Florida. Our intensity guidance looks a little bit concerning for those of you in Bermuda. It looks like once she finally emerges back over open water, it's not going to be a bon voyage farewell. She does look to want to hold on to some of her intensity as she moves off to the east and eventually becomes another player in Bermuda's weather. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to scroll through here real briefly. As you can see, the storm has flooded streets, closed airports, canceled flights, along with causing widespread power outages. We're going to get into that in just 1 second. I'm only going to spend some time here. I didn't want to dig into the nitty-gritty and spend too much of this video talking about the destruction, but I know there are a lot of trending images, both in just static photos or videos, describing just how intense of a system Major Hurricane Idalia was when she came on shore around Keaton Beach, Florida. It goes without saying there are a tremendous number of impacts that are felt, that are going to continue to be felt, and will linger for who's to say how long. I've been watching the comments on not only here YouTube, but Instagram and my newly made TikTok, and there are folks still recovering from Ian just about a year ago. So I would not be surprised if, unfortunately, the areas most affected by Hurricane Idalia's landfall will continue to rebuild for the remainder of this year and could see some residual effects as we go into the early parts of 2024. Just to give you an idea of those who didn't see a whole lot of Idalia, whether it be in Florida or another part of the Gulf Coast, further up the eastern coastline, you name it, there's a lot of people who, so forgive me, this sounds callous, but a lot of people who kind of turn a blind eye to situations like this because they don't see a whole lot of the phenomena. They don't see a lot of the weather impacts and the aftermath products of a cataclysmic storm like this after they make haste through their landfall zone. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because these people are always going to remember this. There are homes lost, potential lives lost, injuries sustained, animal lives lost, lots of financial and infrastructure losses that are suffered thanks to the storm surge, the wind, the rain, and the ever-going threat of continuous storm surge, even as the storm works its way further north, because it's not like the waters are going to go down as soon as she moves to the north. They're still there. There's still lots of potent flooding taking place, and it goes without saying that these effects are going to be felt far and wide for a very long time. Taking a brief glimpse here, we have over 270,000 reported power outages in just Florida alone, and I would anticipate that this number is going to grow. You can see this interactive chart here pretty much giving you the lay of the land as to where the storm came ashore and transitioned off to the northeast in rapid fashion. There are so many folks without power right now, and Lord willing, crews are working feverishly to get the power back on for those of you who really need it, especially those with loved ones who may need medication, those who rely on electronic equipment to stay alive, with newborns, with infants, with adolescents, folks who out there rely on power resources to sustain themselves. And I know that there are a lot of relief efforts already going on as we speak, which is a tremendous thing to see. That's so wonderful, and I'm excited for those of you who can get out there and help. Volunteer if you can, do what you can, help the neighbor beside you, lend a helping hand, because that's the only way we'll begin to expedite this recovery process post Hurricane Idalia. Taking a quick glance at some forecast model charts before we transition to the back end of this video. This is our most up-to-date 12 Zulu European model. This is about where we stand currently. She is beginning to move through the remainder of southeastern Georgia into South Carolina, and she is expected to downgrade to a tropical storm here momentarily. She is only going to spend a limited amount of time impacting the rest of the Carolinas and the East Coast Mid-Atlantic states altogether for at least another 36 to 48 hours. By about the 48-hour point, you can see that her pressure gradient is far enough off the coast to where we will only begin to realize the back-end effects, such as increased swell height, some rip currents along the coast, but nothing too catastrophic in comparison to what we've seen as she has come ashore over the northern portions of Florida and moved in haste across the southeastern U.S. Everyone's getting a feeling of this storm. Everyone's getting a little bit of an experience with Idalia. Moving right along to our maximum gust potential on the Euro model as well. As you can see, over the next 24 to 36 hours, most of inland areas of South and North Carolina are anticipated to see some tropical storm force winds. Despite her downgrading and weakening, this is going to be a continuous trend over the next day or so until she can move far enough off the Atlantic coast to no longer pose a significant threat, which looks to be at about the 48 to 60 hour mark. So we have just a couple more days, guys. This is Saturday, 0Z, the turn of the evening time. Over the weekend, you can start to see that the winds are far enough off the coast to where everyone is finally getting a bit of relief from this storm. And a cooling trend as she moves far enough downstream to build back in a little bit of high pressure in her wake. That's typically what we see happen with these low pressure systems as they move across an area of impact. You begin to see some substance back behind them with the sinking air in response to its travels. So we should see some increased stability and some cooler conditions back behind Idalia as she makes her way back into the Atlantic. Finally, last but not least, this is our maximum wave height. The waves have been pretty tremendous over parts of northern Florida. This has been one of the main weather players with this system. A lot of flooding, a lot of inundation along the coastline, especially in areas of the Big Bend. And as you can see, as we go through this high-res model, we are going to see some lingering effects from this storm until she makes her way eastward away from the coastline. And it looks like somewhere in between Friday and into Saturday, we can finally see the recession of the storm surge and the wave heights once her center can get far enough off the coast to no longer pose a credible threat. So conditions are on the downward trend. Once we can get her off that North Carolina coastline into the Atlantic again, she does not look to intensify as she does so. I know she's going to go back over Gulf Stream waters, but it does not appear that she is going to re-intensify. We had reports of between 6 to 12 foot storm surge and swells in the Big Bend area of Florida. This is the song and dance that we've been preparing for this entire time, at least for the last couple of days now. We knew that the storm surge inundation was going to be tremendous. We also had the tides working against us, albeit the timing was a bit more favorable when we came down to the last-minute impact of her landfall at 7:45 this morning. But regardless, there are a lot of folks who were impacted by the sea heights, the waves, and the storm surge, thanks to her becoming a major hurricane hours before making landfall. I'll scroll through this one last time, folks, so you can get a good close look. This is the latest European run, maximum wave wave height. It looks like we're going to spend another 2 days with Idalia before she can transition to the east, and those waves can begin to calm. So relief is on the horizon. We've been talking tremendously about how this storm is up and coming. Prepare, but now, guys, we can finally prepare for a sigh of relief, because it looks like by Friday into Saturday, everyone across the board will finally see this storm die down and disappear. So this wouldn't be a tropical update if we didn't see what the path ahead looked like. This is the latest global tropics outlook from Climate Prediction Center, and I want you guys to fixate real briefly with me on the September 13th through the 19th time frame. They have elevated our risk to above 40% chance we could see a new round of developing storms in the main development region. That does not go without saying that up above here from September 6th to the 12th, we are above a 20% chance that we could see some development in the MDR headed towards the southeastern United States between September 6th and September 12th. I hate to say it, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news after just trying to provide a little bit of uplift, previously speaking, but there are a couple of new things on the horizon that I really want to pay close attention to. This is the probability from the Euro model as of 12 Zulu today of seeing tropical depression formation out there in the Atlantic Basin. 96 hours out, this is only 4 days from now. There is some probability for a new wave to develop off the African coast and advect west-northwest, as they do in traditional fashion for this time of year. This is our current invest area. Moving off to the north-northwest should pose no significant impact to land masses at this time. This is going to be Idalia as she works her way east towards Bermuda, and Franklin is rapidly accelerating off to the northeast as well, no longer posing a factor to anybody, and it looks like he should stay far enough away from Canada, Nova Scotia to not send any kind of influence their way. At 120 hours out, you can see that the Euro model is picking up on probabilities going up as it transitions westward through the main development region. And as we continue to go through time, 144 hours out to 168 hours out, you can see that now we are up to about a 75 to 85% chance of tropical depression development by the 6th of September. 12Z on the 6th of September. That's where this chart sits now. The latest operational run, the 12Z Euro, also does highlight not one but two potential features out there in the MDR. At 36 hours out, you can see a bit of vorticity out over West Africa beginning to plop out over the MDR. There she is at about 54 and 60 hours out, and as we go forward in time to 96 hours, it becomes a bit more organized, moving to the west thanks to the steering flow in this upper level ridge just to the north of it, and then back behind it at approximately 144 hours out, you can see yet another system making its way east off the African continent, while we continue to see further organization from its downstream counterpart off to the west, moving towards the Lesser Antilles, but it is anticipated to lift a little bit according to the most recent run of the Euro. We go out to 192 hours out, and you can now see that this feature is likely forming up into a tropical depression, and we actually have a pretty organized tropical storm in this feature riding along the south side of this ridge of high pressure out over the Atlantic waters. This is going to transition it dangerously close to the Bahamas as we go through time. As we get to the very end of the run, you can see that we have a very organized system that almost resembles that of an Atlantic hurricane, with a tropical storm following close behind. So it goes without saying, as we roll into September, things are not going to quiet down. We're going to have to keep our guard up, head on a swivel, because there are more features anticipated to develop out there. Finally, you can see this representation on the Euro ensembles as well. This has been trending for the last couple of days, I think for the last 2 to 3 days now, despite all eyes being on Hurricane Idalia as she's made her way towards the Florida coastline. I've been keeping an eye on what the future looks like. At 144 hours out, you can see that the models are in agreement that we could see something in the way of a tropical depression form over the central MDR. I'll clear the ink and we can go forward in time to 192 hours, and now we are seeing even more agreement that we could see something in the form of a Category 1 hurricane as early as 7 September at 12Z, beginning to work its way west-northwest through the MDR, getting dangerously close to the northern Lesser Antilles. As we continue moving forward, what becomes a lot more concerning as these ensembles transition to the west and west-northwest, there are a lot of models in agreement, especially at the tail end of this run. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 of the European members calling for something below 950 millibars in its center. And as we're very familiar with Hurricane Idalia, 950 Sub 950 is major hurricane. So we got to keep our head on the swivel. Things are looking to amp up once again as we get into September and the middle parts of September. That is the peak of hurricane season. We could potentially, over the next week or so, have 2 new systems to worry about in the main development region headed west. And with the way the upper air pattern is panning out, these could get a lot closer to the southeastern coast of the United States or play a vital role in the weather conditions for Caribbean islands as we go through the future, thanks to the ridging of high pressure to the north that are not going to allow these to simply become a fish storm and escape well upstream of what these ensemble models are predicting. Now that we've sort of ebbed and flowed between good and bad, let's get into the conclusion of episode 16. And that is a wrap on episode 16 of Weather Center Nazario. Idalia continues to cause trouble for Georgia and the Carolinas, but she will emerge safely back over open water and become no more than a mere memory despite all of the influence and impact she's had on thousands upon thousands of individuals in her path. In the interim, there are a lot of new lessons and theories that can be drawn thanks to her erratic behavior from start to finish. We also have to set our sights on what's to come because this is not even close to the end of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season. Viewers, thanks so much for following the channel even before her formation. Thanks tremendously for those who found my channel thanks to her spawning in over the Western Caribbean, and a warm, generous thank you to those who will continue to follow me as I continue this journey with all of you coming along for the ride, because you know weather doesn't quit, Mother Nature doesn't take any breaks, and there's a lot more information to cover as we go throughout the rest of 2023 and to see what the future has in store for us from there and after. Please like and share this video, and make sure you've subscribed if you haven't done so already. Click that notification bell. Please, that is the biggest tidbit that I can give you guys, especially coming this far and after the cataclysmic event that was Idalia. I want to make sure that all this information and the updates that I can provide to you to the best of my ability get to you in a safe and timely manner. This is not the end of hurricane season. There does seem to be a couple of exciting entities to cover on the near-distant horizon as we begin September, the rest of the peak of hurricane season, and you can guarantee this is not the end of this YouTube channel as well. Have a beautiful rest of your Wednesday, everyone. I hope you've been safe amidst all the ruckus and chaos and destruction, and I'll see you soon. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.